We are Greg and Leah, the host of Evolve, the number one podcast about relationships, and not just the tender or toxic romantic ones, but all kinds of relationships with many people, places, and paths.
And we aren't here because we know or understand it all, simply because we are working to evolve and asking others to join the evolution.
So join us in this next episode of Evolve.
Welcome to Evolve, another episode with
Greg
and Leah. So today we have some different, interesting information on our evolution journey as we evolve through different beliefs, practices, eye-opening experiences. So I'll let you take it away. First, you can just tell us what you did.
Oh, so yeah, I did, I guess it was like 4 grams of mushrooms. Yeah, 4 grams today. I had done mushrooms before. I think the most I ever did was like 2. And then I did twice before. I did 2 grams. And they were really, really an intense high. Didn't go into any psychedelic modes or anything like that.
So before you tell me your experience, I'd like to, I'll also share as well. I'm microdosing at the same time, which has no effects as far as like any kind of psychedelic effects. It's really just more for like
Well, yours is more
mindfulness and like
the
present, being
mushrooms are
creative.
lion's mane, right?
No, it is a small dose of magic mushrooms and with lion's mane and things like that. But I have not yet taken the leap into higher dose mushrooms, so I know the reason. Like I grabbed mine. This is the second time I've done this microdosing series, and I always dive in with an intention. So I want to ask you first, before you tell me your experience, what was the reason you wanted to take this journey?
This time, if you listen to a couple of episodes ago, this is a plug.
Stoicism, yeah. WTF is Stoicism. I believe, episode 10 or 11.
Been reading that book, and that'll be in the comments, I'm sure, or in the likes. Oh yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, the book rec. Yeah, we put that in the description before. Okay.
I learned something very impacting yesterday in my self help thing.
In the homework of the book?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That I have, as a child, I was not allowed to say, I don't know. I'd get in trouble. That was, and I know,
why did you do this? What are you thinking?
All kids say, I don't know. But it was worse than the Bill Cosby. I don't know.
Well, his was.
How did your hair get this way? I don't know. But anyway, it was. I won't go into the details of all that. But if I said I didn't know, so I compensated with, I'll be agreeable.
Right.
And I realized yesterday that programming that self as a child, that wall or that mechanism or that
I would say coping mechanism, so that you don't get into trouble.
I have developed in a lot of ways throughout my life where I become agreeable. I've said things immediately, let's do this, and
without putting thought into it.
And what happens is we go ahead and go do those things because I'm a person of my word. But because my inner self did not really want to do whatever it was,
I make angry, mad, irritable.
Thank you.
I'm just throwing in extra words.
You know the drill.
Yeah. I mean, everybody does it to some extent.
So in this was a programming that I had developed as a child, and I have brought it into my adulthood and many areas of my life. And I went into this journey this morning with an intention of, I wanted all that programming
to flush out in one journey.
I did. I wanted that no longer served me. I wanted it gone. I didn't want to have to go through a mental. I didn't want to have. It sounds selfish. I didn't want to go through the work of having to mentally do all that, and so I put an intention to have that happen. Well, let me tell you,
Okay, so now you want to
Yeah.
tell us your experience. And I wanted to ask you that because evolve is all about us like evolving into something better, different. Like you mentioned a second ago, dropping things that don't serve us and picking up better actions, beliefs, practices throughout our lives here. So, you know, this isn't something that we would have even entertained 10, 15, 20 years ago at all. Like,
No.
I mean, for sure. We thought people doing this were like those druggies on the side that you see on the fentanyl and all these
But
heavy drugs. Like, those are
I
people are
have
the
to
drug
say, I've
addicts.
been
And
open to it since, our son um, had his experience and shared with us, because I have realized that the awakening that he brought into our home just by him experience has awakened me more and more.
Mhm.
And maybe I already was to a degree, but I think that that has opened up a whole lot of things. So
So
anyway,
yeah, that's the reason I just kind of wanted to, set set your intention up first to see like why were
that
you
was
doing
my
this. And
intention going into it, and I have to say, at the jumping to the end, yeah, that was the end result was
you feel like you accomplished
it.
that intention got
Well,
manifested.
when
Or
we, as we talk more, you'll understand why I say
okay, so
hell's yes.
and like I
So,
said, I'm microdosing. That has no effects as far as anything psychedelic or hallucinogenic. So yeah,
and to
let's.
say too, I did not go the last two times. I think I had my intentions going into it was recreational,
Yeah, I think you
fun
said that
times,
before.
and I enjoyed immensely both the 2 gram, and
Oh, so this was double
this was
that.
double, yes,
Okay,
and it was enhanced with the
chocolate and
chocolate
espresso beans and things
espresso
like that.
beans,
Dark
right?
chocolate and espresso,
So,
which affects it, gets it into the bloodstream even faster, apparently.
so
So
we went on a. I had it was I precisioned a lot of this. ten
okay,
o'clock exactly is when I actually ingested the 10
okay,
a.m. So
right,
that
right.
I mentally documented these things. It's not like I wrote them down. And I did not start feeling my first effect. We went on a hike, and then
Yeah,
we
yeah.
went on a hike into the Garden of the Gods, and a familiar hike that we've all been on before. My son and you and
Well, and we didn't know,
the
how you would
dog.
react, and everyone does according, apparently, respond differently, and depending on what headspace they're in and what they're going through, what they're working through. So we didn't want to be too far from home in case
Right.
you started tripping badly.
So the beginning of it, I think the first effects started occurring probably 10:20,
I was gonna say
10:25.
probably 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it color pops, just you really feel. In fact, the very first sensations was my feet became sand in my shoes, kind of thing. It's not.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
felt one with, and and
Well, I wonder what it'd been like had you been barefoot.
there's a lot of things that, in fact, I remember and I remember everything. There's nothing that happened that I don't
Yeah. It's not like
remember.
drunk where you black out and can't remember anything.
Now I know that the second sensation was complete.
The
My
Saxon?
second sensation was the balance. My balance became the place. Everything was very difficult to manage.
What, you mean like spinning? Like feeling you felt dizzy? Like,
It wasn't head dizzy. It was like everything was moving. It was very flowing, and after a while I got in tune with it. But at first it was like
disorienting.
disorienting.
Yeah, yeah.
And I gotta say, at this point, things were very awesome. Like color pops,
Yeah, I mean, we
birds,
were all of us on the
and
hike together, and you were like getting kind of, I mean, not really giggly, but like definitely happy.
yeah,
Like
and
a high, like a
it's true. And
cannabis high is what it
I
kind of seemed
didn't
like at
smoke
first.
at all. I think I smoked prior to like right before, but I didn't. I didn't. I had brought my vape, but I don't think I hit it until after a wave.
So
So
colors popped first, and then did a little bit of disorientation of like things that everything moving.
yeah, and then um, we were having a good time. We're just hiking along, and oh, everybody that walked by, every person that I could even came within a eye contact of, I could hear everything they were saying and almost hear everything they were thinking.
So senses get
It was
heightened, like
amazing. Like these two
visually
people walked
and
by, and
auditorily.
they were having a very intense. And she was. I mean, it was sad. I mean, just things that I had emotion for
So like,
things.
do
It
you feel
was.
like you had a spidey sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I get that way if I've had like a hit on your pen, or if I've had a smoke of like a pot or something like that. Like I don't have that very often, but when I do, it hits immediately
So
fast, and it
you were
feels like
along with
that.
us, and I don't know if I was. I'm not sure whether I was part of the.
What, the hike? You
Yeah, I
were
was.
you were
I
a
mean, you
part of
were
the
taking
hike.
pictures, and we were doing. But you asked me any questions now, and this. I mean, like I said, I remember everything, but uh,
So there was a part like we were probably halfway through the hike, and you were like walking very slowly. Like maybe you were enjoying what was around, or maybe you were confused. I'm not sure because I kept like looking back, and then we sat in the shade for a little bit.
right when it was a moment where it was really getting intensely awesome. I mean, just where at one moment my head felt really heavy, and I
You're,
mean, not
he
that
has a big
I have a
head,
big head anyway, but
literally and figuratively.
it was like I was one with everything. And
Did you
that's
touch anything? Like, I mean, I hug and talk to trees. I don't even need to be high for anything like that. I've always done that. I'm very interconnected with
so I
nature in
really
that sense.
don't
But
remember, except for the pine cones, the
oh,
little
I think I remember you grabbing
the
like
baby ones.
we have a lot of pines that are in like season now coming out, growing all their brand new pine cones. So I think you grabbed like a tree to look at it, maybe.
Yeah,
But
and the smells and the yeah, the smells were really intense.
that's what I'm saying. All your senses, then you feel like we're on like turned up.
Right. Yeah.
And see, that's how I feel all the time. And you're always like, you guys mess with me like, oh my God, you smell everything. It's ridiculous. You hear everything. You see everything. But I do feel like my senses are often pretty heightened. And I don't mind it most
So
of the time.
at this stage of the game, it's purely having a good time, and I'm recreational, and I had already set those intentions, and it wasn't like I'm in the Buddhist.
You weren't against being having fun at the same
Right.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I already and
But so when you sat down in the shade, were you kind of feeling overwhelmed right
so we
then?
sat
Like
down in the
maybe
shade,
that was halfway through the
and
hike.
it really I felt good, and the boy made a comment, which is was he. It was cool because he actually knew everything that was going on. I could say something,
Having had
and he was like,
experiences
"Yeah, well, this is
himself, yeah.
happening," and he'd be like, it was almost like having my a big brother around. I mean, even though he's my kid, it was like
Right.
having my big brother around, saying, "Oh, it's okay here. You're okay." So I
Well, and
really
they always recommend you don't do it by yourself. So you do have a trip sitter so that you have someone you trust. And
there was never a time that because I knew what I had an expectation of there could be some crazy shit happen, and that I wouldn't be scared. And I know paranoid
mm,
ghost. I've dealt with
yeah,
that all my life smoking pot, and there's when you get a good strain of weed, and you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh
feel
yeah, I
paranoid.
know who you are. Go away. You're Mr. Paranoid, and Shadow Man.
So you
Guess
felt paranoid this time, or you didn't feel
no,
paranoid?
I was
Oh,
prepared.
oh,
So I
okay,
was
okay,
prepared. And then having the boy there to, oh yeah, that's this, or oh yeah, that's that. Oh, and like when I told him, I
oh,
said my head feels like it's freaking huge, and he's like, yeah, well that's wait till it starts feeling like it's small. But
okay.
this is where okay. So at that point, when he said what he had said there was, we can't stay here because if he puts his hands on the ground, he won't be able
Right,
to
you're
get
gonna
up.
like.
And
I
I
think it was
realized
something
that
along the
if
lines of
I
that you
was to
would root
touch
into this
at
ground.
that particular time, if I was to touch the earth, I wasn't moving. And I made agreed, we have to go. And then all of a sudden, this urge to go
Yeah, then
home
you really were like, let's go home, let's go home, let's go home.
came on me. And
But you weren't moving fast. You still were moving pretty slow.
time just was not going fast enough for me.
Okay.
And
And I ended up driving. I mean, we already knew like I was going to
yeah.
drive home because, it's not really a position someone should be in driving, but
Oh yeah, this whole time you were doing your meeting, remember?
I was in my
You're on your
classes and
phone.
stuff. So I was multitasking,
So
babysitting you and
okay, then so it was like a let's get to the car, and we were at a point where I remember asking, are we on the way to the car? And Joshua said, yes, this is going to take us to the car, and we ended up going.
Because you felt lost, or
I knew
because like
exactly where we were, but we were at the Siamese twins,
yeah, yeah,
and it was like
on the trail, yeah.
right, and I was like, wait a minute, we're on the, and I couldn't get I had to look where
Oh,
Pikes
so you
Peak
kind of
were.
lost your
Yeah, I
bearings
had
of
to
like
find out
which
where Pikes
direction.
Peak was, and anytime I get lost in this vicinity, I always have to look for that mountain, and when I
Yeah.
find that mountain, then I feel better.
Look to the mountains. Sounds like a Bible verse. So I drove us home. You
So
started kind of getting a little more like
we got to the car,
irritable, maybe anxious.
and I think at that point you had the phone.
I was still on my video conference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I looked over and I saw on the phone all the square faces,
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
it freaked me out. I was like, we got to get out. I don't like that. And that's one thing I have realized in the past with the two
Other mushroom
other
experiences.
experiences.
Yeah.
You really, if you don't like something,
Well, that's something
it's
that,
like a child. I don't like that. I don't like
yeah.
that. I remember saying, I don't like the way the spoon does this or whatever last time. Like,
Yeah, and
oh,
our son has said that before. Like their mushrooms are an experience and they will tell you what they like, what they don't like, and it is a living entity in the sense that it is you're connecting your energy with their energy, and I think a very pure energy where you just, I mean, I'm gonna say here, like going back to how you opened up, you weren't living authentically, where like nature's substances, which mushrooms is one of them, lives 100% authentic. There's nothing inauthentic about nature, but you were living inauthentically in this role you were playing, this persona
right.
you had felt you had to be, this agreeable person, people pleaser you were being inauthentic. So
Yep.
I like that correlation that nature is authentic always. So when you consume it, it requires authenticity of
It
you.
does. And so what happened then was because, and I realized this, and so, well, now I realize at the time, I knew something was happening,
Yeah,
that I was going to go through a transformation here.
you're mentally prepared for
I
it.
was mentally prepared for a battle of whatever, whether it was a demon or whether it was a tree. I knew that it was inner me. And so we, that experience with and John, the boy has says at many times, never look in a mirror because it's,
Looking at yourself might be a little weird.
well, it's just,
I always feel like that'd be some kind of horror movie, so I don't ever want to do that
so
when
there
I'm
was
on
a couple
something.
times that I remember. I just make
Oh
a
no, you're gonna
practical.
say looking at one of us looked weird?
No, I
Oh,
remember walking
okay.
along and I remember that movie we watched. Are you in the spirit world?
Oh, I can't
Hey,
think of the name of that
Lost,
movie.
was it Lost? No,
Oh my God, we'll think of it.
Young
Young Guns.
Guns.
Yeah, that's an old movie, but yeah. Are we in the? And they might have had
Are
like
we in the spirit? They
they
did
probably had
mushroom. No, they did peyote.
ayahuasca
They
or
did
something. Yeah.
peyote or something.
Which I have a lot of acquaintances who have done that experience, and that's something I think I will try at some point in my life, but it will come to me when it's time. But getting back to yours, so we got home.
I got home and we all kind of went our. I got home and I was like, okay, I'm
You
home.
kind of seemed to me like you were like crawling, like I just need to, no, no, I just need to get to inside, like as if you needed a safe space, I would
Right.
say.
Oh, I forgot to tell you about the green dog. Remember the green
Oh, you
dog?
did ask us on the hike, like, is that dog was
The
green?
dog was green.
It was like a husky that passed us on the trail. There was a lot of people
But
on the
that then
trail
that was an
today.
explanation. The boy said, "Well, and that green popped so bright.
Certain
Oh
colors
my
pop
gosh,
pretty bright.
green
Yeah,
was
greens and
crazy for
blues
me."
and stuff.
But when we got to the house here, the blue was like crazy. So I came inside and I remember crawling. I had to go to. I was like I
You just
felt
seem like a little kid. Like I just need to get in my bed. I just need to get to my
well.
bed.
Actually, felt like I was gonna die. But
Like what? So explain that for a second. Why? What? Like your
like
body was hurting.
darkness was coming all over everywhere,
Like when you
everywhere.
go to sleep, that kind of a darkness where you just shut down.
Right. And but
Okay.
I was that's why I was trying to get, and I remember the last thing I remembered was the clock said 11:11.
And it's ironic, like that you saw that number. I was still on my phone conference, and I happened to look at the clock in the car in the Jeep, and it said 11:11. So I thought that's pretty cool when we talked about this a second ago, of just
And
both
after
seeing the
after
time.
seeing 11:11, it was dark, gone. But I was still aware,
So
and
that's not even an hour into the whole, trip yet.
yeah,
If it hit at 10:20 ish, 10:30 ish, you're not even in a full hour into
it's
it yet.
true. And so
So
at
it
this
happens pretty
time,
fast.
from 11:11, and I remember my eyes opening and looking at the clock again. It was 11:24, and between 11:11 and 11:24, all I was a white dot in blackness, gone, completely gone.
Why a white dot? What do
I
you
don't
mean?
know. I was a white light.
That is what you
Yep,
felt, like what you
that's all
saw,
I
like.
saw, and that's all I was.
And do you think you were asleep?
I have no idea.
We all left you. Well, I was still in the conference. The boy, I'm not sure if he might have been inside watching TV or something else, but we all knew you were safe
There
and you were
was
fine, so we
there,
left you
but
to yourself.
I knew that it was blackness, and I had no, I don't, there just no thoughts, just black, and I was the light. I was the bright light,
Mm-hmm.
but it was small.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I opened my eyes at 11:24, I popped up, and I remember this because it happened the last two times I've done. The 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 trip is over, and it was instantaneously. It was like,
But that wasn't the case.
oh my god! I got up and I came outside because I needed to find you, and I had a knowing that you were always around and I was safe,
Yeah.
and but
I got in and off my call about 11:45.
I don't know how after
So,
seeing 11:24 and whatever
yeah, I
finding
got in the
you,
house about
I have
11:45.
no idea, but
And I checked on
that's
you and
when everything went bad.
okay, so tell us why. What do you mean
And
bad?
I realize now
So you
after
would say up to this point it was enjoyable for the
enjoyable
most
until that
part.
I felt like I died. So there was like a death place.
Hmm.
And then after the awakening, I felt an initial rush of, yes, it's done and I'm over with it. I felt fine until
Oh, that was easy.
yeah. And then I put my feet on the floor and I felt like my body was being twisted from the inside out.
Like somebody wringing you out.
Right. And, but at the same time, it was like I knew that this is what I needed. Something, it was necessary. Whatever was
Well,
going on,
when
it was,
you asked for it to go away, like what was it you said in the beginning? Like that for this intention, you just wanted to like have this one big purge experience. I
and this
guess
is
I'm
why
not
I
sure the
knew
word
that,
you used,
and this
but
is why I knew and I never said this until after, right now,
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
but I knew that this was what was happening. I was going to have to suffer. And I, not that it wasn't, it was intense, but it wasn't unbearable.
Would you say like describe the pain? Like if you're at a doctor's office,
I,
they're like, where's it hurting? What's happening
I was having contractions
in your belly,
in
in your
my body.
body, your whole
Everything
body?
was,
Okay.
I felt like, and this is the only explanation I could see is I died, left my body, and now I was coming back to my avatar, and it was not liking it. And there was a battle between me coming back into my body. And
Hmm.
that experience is I went through the next, 2 hours
A couple hours, yeah.
of complete agony, except it, I think I can only explain the I made a mention of childbirth, but I have no idea what that felt like. But
I mean, your uterus and your womb is contracting without your consent. But what about like? So we've
well,
used tens machines. Would you say it was like that kind of like where it's like?
that's not I didn't that was it's it just sounds kinky, but it was an enjoyable thing.
But you were
It
like
was in pain.
whining and moaning
It
the whole
was
time. Like we were like, we can't actually be
so
in
I can
public
only
with
relate
you.
it to what the boy has talked about when he gets a tattoo. That the pain is so intense, but it's so like orgasmic at the same time.
Well, I
So
don't know about
I
that,
was
but
both in a serious pain, yet at the same time in ecstasy, and it was crazy. I couldn't explain it any more than that.
So,
It
what do
is
you think? I'm going to stop you here for a minute. What do you think was happening there? I mean, you kind of mentioned like, oh, myself coming back into here and not like they were battling it out. Do you think there's anything more that you think now that you're able to cognitively look back
so.
and
I think
say,
there was a whole lot more healing that happened
mm.
than I don't. I haven't even.
So you think a lot of it you'll start to see
Oh God,
over
I
time,
already
maybe?
know that. I hate to use this. I know that I know shit, but it's like I
Well,
already
you don't
had.
know maybe
I
while
don't
you're in
know.
that downtime what was being
Right.
downloaded.
I can, and I said this, and the boy was like, "What the hell is slain in the spirit mean?" But I
If you've
related
grown up in a religious atmosphere where
when
that is a thing,
when we
you'll
were slain
understand.
in the spirit. You're laying there on the floor and
Right, right.
whatever. It was like a reconstruction,
Yeah, that I would say like those experiences for me were like operating
operating
tables. You
tables,
knew like it was, stuff was coming out, stuff was going in, you were getting better, you were being worked on.
and there was never a time at those experiences that I didn't. Everything was under my control always at those
Hmm.
experiences. I allowed
So in
whatever.
this, you feel like you didn't have some control for a lot of
No,
this?
I already gave permission for this to happen by
Yeah,
my
yeah,
intention.
yeah.
So I was, like I said, prepared for a universal, the
Intervention. Yeah,
universal doctor, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
reconstruction. I mean, so I know that there was a separation between my being and my body,
Hmm.
literally, to the point where I realized that it doesn't matter. I'm already
There was a point when I came to
one
check on
of.
you in the bed, and you're like, none of this is real. Which we've had experiences with that before, like in meditations or like deep reflection
Oh yeah, you
times.
came in
Like,
and we hugged and you told me you
um,
love me and that. Yeah, I said
yeah,
none of this. That there are yeah. So yeah, you realize what's real and what's not, and what's good for you and what's not, what your body likes and what your body. And I think there's may have been a spiritual battle, and maybe that's in everyone where our bodies are at war with our,
well,
in
we did an
unison,
episode prior to this one that was
listening to
already
our
released,
body. Yeah,
listening to our bodies and what I mean. There's so much we could talk about there, and we only got 30 minutes to talk about it, and we could definitely hit it again. But we don't listen to our bodies, so I think that there is often in us a war, a battle always happening, like of the authentic self and then the like programmed self that are always wrestling. And then there's also just the organic matter we live in here that like you can't have dairy, but you're gonna have it. And then you
yeah,
end up with a stomach ache, which is a
right.
battle in your body saying we're not supposed to have this. I can't break this down. So often we're not listening to our bodies. So this was an experience where you had no choice. Like you said, I like how you said I gave permission before I even consumed anything. I set the intention, I gave permission, and I surrendered myself to this experience.
And I allowed things that, I mean, it's kind of cool because when you're, I know the boys said the same thing. You want to let everybody know that you're tripping, so that way.
If you're acting weird, they know why. Yeah.
But we then got in the car and we went for a drive,
Hmm.
and I remember, well,
I had you sit in the back. I had you lay in the back just so
yeah,
you could lay
I
out.
was at,
Well, and you didn't. You were going to throw up, or you were throwing up,
well, my
and
whole
you're
body
like,
was squeezing, and it just, like I said, it's like I I, I felt it in my core the most.
you're always grabbing your center. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. But then when that would go away, it was like
It was very quick,
it
like
was like
come and goes.
stair steps of. I knew that I was coming down, but
Right.
the I shot up quick, and the come down was just
Took hours.
really long. And
So what would you say your whole time frame was from 10 o'clock? And then when would you say like we
when
went mini
we
golfing. We
went
actually did a lot of
we
other
did a lot
things.
of shit today. But
Yeah.
when I did the hole in one, that's when it ended.
Oh, I don't know
Remember,
what
I was
time that
like
was. Probably
the ninth
maybe around two
hole.
o'clock ish, maybe.
Was it
So
that
like
late or that early?
yeah, 2, 3 o'clock at the latest.
No, that
Because
was
then we hit the grocery store after that,
it was
and by
later
then you
because
were fine.
I was able to drive when we left the putt putt golf, and I had
Yeah.
one beer, and that one beer lasted like the whole time.
So, we're almost at 30 minutes here now. I want to ask you, like, what is your ultimate takeaway? What do you think? That was half of the purchase that you consumed. Would you do it again soon? You'd give it a little while, and what's your ultimate takeaway?
Um, I don't think I would want to do it for a while.
And it seems like that's a lot of people's experience. They do it months and months and months apart.
not that I, like I said, this was such a um, mental body experience that a
Physical,
battle,
emotional,
yeah. But I
spiritual
don't,
experience. Yeah.
I didn't feel tired now. I mean, I maybe I am, but
Oh, we've also had a very busy day,
yeah.
but ultimately, like, how do you feel? Like, give it your stamp of, either approval or not. Like, what's
Well, if I was to, if someone was asking, should I do mushrooms? The mushrooms will, you'll know. You don't need to ask anybody a question, and I think personally
consult yourself about that?
they'll
Yeah.
find you. Um, I mean, if you're looking for them, you can find them, sure. Um, I would always suggest have somebody that
You trust
you
and feel
trust.
safe
The
with
place
around
that
you. Yeah.
I personally got mine, they actually have rooms that you can go to
Yeah, like trip
and
rooms
trip
and stuff
rooms
like
and
that.
have
Yeah.
I didn't feel I needed that because of my family experience already.
Yeah.
Um, I think that not it's like pot. It's not for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that you'd have to enjoy or research and develop for yourself. Uh, I'll let you know more as as I'm
And yeah,
developing.
like I think it was good
But
that, you had a couple of experiences that you feel like you can connect a reasoning to or
I
a
would say the benefits in my mind so far has been um, the connectiveness to humanity and to
all living
all
life.
living life, and even where you would think, well, like that rock is not alive. Hell's yes,
Oh
that
no, I've heard a lot of
I
people
mean, so
talk to the
the
rocks.
energy that are in the rocks. Look at diamonds. People are surrounded by them, but
Right,
or
right.
surround themselves by them, I should say, to glorify things. But
But
um,
your ultimate takeaway you feel like is pretty positive.
I went through a lot. I'm as interested as you are to find out
Like what else
what else unfolds,
unfolds and
and
also reveals
I guess I
itself
can
as it
let you
goes.
know.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. I feel peaceful,
Hmm.
calm.
And we'll see. We'll follow up and see like how has it affected the intention that you set. Like as time goes on, we'll talk later and maybe come back to this at some point to see like, hey, do you feel like this one event purged you of that personality?
Well, have you ever had that where one event?
I
It
might
doesn't
have
have
to
to have
think
a
pretty.
mushroom trip to have
Yeah, I'd
that.
have
I
to
mean,
think about that. I mean, I know you have this a lot though in your life. Like when you said years ago, like I'm just going to give up cigarettes. You gave it up and you were done. Like you have a very strong like your bloodline, your mother, you guys like when you want to get rid of something, you get rid of it and you never have a craving again.
we beat the shit out of it. So I got the shit beat out of me
So,
today.
whereas
So
other people they'll struggle like with addiction because addiction, I would say like a lot of the things you've given up were addictive or you were addicted to them, but when you give them up cold turkey, like you never really crave again. That really you just like you decide you're like a train track that just switches the track and you don't ever take that track again unless you choose to come back to the track. And it seems like an easier thing for you to do. So,
I
in
think
this
that the
case, we'll
biggest
see.
thing about this is now that um, wow, I just lost my train of thought. That's unusual.
Yeah. Huh.
The
The biggest thing about this
well,
experience
my intention was to eliminate that
programming, so to speak.
programming,
Yeah.
and when you have so what the mushrooms do or has given you an more in tune with everything around me, and I'm trying to put my words together here, so that I you know what you like and what you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to. I hope I've been able to set a boundary now that okay, I don't have to be so agreeable. I can get that
If I don't want to do this, if
space.
I don't like this, I will give myself permission to
Give
say no.
give me the
Yeah.
space to respond before I respond.
Mm-hmm.
That this will remind that programming is gone. That now the new programming is there is a before you respond with an answer,
Right.
find out what you really like and what you don't like.
Right.
And with
And
the
be
mushroom,
authentic to that
be
answer.
authentic
Yeah.
because
When you answer, let it be a genuine
with the
answer.
mushrooms, like you had said earlier, and that's a good. You made a great point.
I did.
Yeah,
What?
you're taking an authentic thing and fighting against your
Right.
unauthentic
Right. Your
authenticity. Your
inauthenticity. Yeah.
inauthenticity, which was
Yeah. That
a
internal
character that
battle.
I created for coping mechanisms, so I
Right.
wouldn't get in trouble.
And it kept you safe for a season, but you've overextended that season and
Right.
kept renewing when you should have not.
I should have canceled the
You should have,
Amazon Prime.
yeah, you should have canceled the subscription. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap it up here. Is there any other closing thoughts or statements around this adventure today that you want
I'd
to,
love to hear some comments or questions. I
mm-hmm.
mean,
or their own experience?
I
Maybe,
didn't give you all the details of my experience, of course, but it was like at one point, the biggest thing I take away is I felt like I was driving in the back of the car like Neo in the Matrix driving when he first got plugged back into the.
Oh,
And he said, I laughed. I remember saying, noodles. I remember that place. Got good noodles.
oh, when in the movie, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and we
yes,
drove
yes,
by
yes.
one of the pizza places. Like,
Oh my gosh.
pizza.
Yes, and The Matrix is a good one too. If you ever want to, I don't know, we don't have any book recs for this at all, do we?
Well, The
Like, if
Matrix is a great movie to
yeah.
watch. Matrix 1
Talk about
and
getting unplugged and removing yourself from the programming for sure.
take some mushrooms and watch The
Trying to
Matrix.
think. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll add some in the description if we can, think of some that we're not thinking of off the top of our head right at this
Alice in
moment.
Wonderland.
But yeah. But yes, thank you for tuning in and listening to this adventure of Greg's adventurous trip. I'm not sure what we're going to call this one.
Shroomhead.
But until next time,
I'm Greg.
no, like,
Oh, like,
subscribe.
Subscribe,
I don't know. He's falling out
comment.
now. Maybe it's affecting you.
I gotta go smoke a joint.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. And until next time, be evolving, people.